Games from the Cellar, the board gaming podcast. Hey, John.
Hey, Stephen.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing good. We're going to play Undaunted.
We are going to spill some blood this evening, Stephen.
The blood of the brave on the shores of France.
Exactly.
No, so this is a game that's been on my radar for a while. It checks two boxes off for me. So one, it's a war game.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it's a deck builder.
Okay.
And when you combine those two together, deck building games being one of my favorite types of games,
Mm-hmm.
and then a war game, which means that I get to play with you.
Yeah.
And
God bless somebody will play with me. So I'm very appreciative of you.
So
this
this has been something I've been wanting to get to for a while.
Okay.
So there's another sequel, or I don't know how you're going to call it, what you would call it, but another game in the series that's Undaunted Great Britain. It actually has
Battle of Britain.
Yeah, the Battle of Britain.
Airplanes.
It's got airplanes. So I wanted to try this one out first, just because it's the first one. It's the basic one.
Yeah, and there's a North Africa as well, and I think that's it. And I don't know. So are they going to stick with World War II? Because I'll be honest with you, the rules and things going on here could probably be applied to other, not World War I. World War I.
It's funny you say that.
Okay.
So right now, I think coming out in the next couple of months, there is 2200 Callisto, which is a futuristic battle over the moon. Or a moon. I don't know if it's our moon or if it's another moon, but it's basically like a space version.
Moon. Right.
And then the other interesting piece on that one is it's 1 to 2 to 4 players.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I don't know if it's 4-player free-for-all or if it's 2-player on teams.
Right, teams.
So I'm very interested to see how that one works as well.
Yeah, I'll be, because after playing this once, I'm thinking, boy, you could do the Battle of Hastings on this, or Naseby, or something like. You could do a more medieval or like Renaissance era, but you could do older warfare with this with the same rule set very easily.
Yeah, I don't see. I mean, we've only played a couple of games. We've done Scenario 1, and I've done a few practice sessions to get the rules down. I can easily see this working for other battles and other systems.
Yeah, so, and other eras.
And other eras, yeah. So this could be like the new CNC.
Yep, sure could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that level of accessibility as well. So this is simple and straightforward. People that don't have a whole lot of experience with direct conflict games, there's just not that much rule complexity.
So one of the things I was surprised about is the level of deck building that happens.
Yeah.
Normally with deck builders, when you think of Dominion or Thunderstone or Ascension or Marvel Legendary or something like that, you're looking at a bunch of different and varied cards that you're trying to make combos out of. And while there are some combos that you can do with like the platoon sergeants and the squad leaders and things like that, it's really... The deck building is really more about what resources you have available to you in a turn. Yeah. So the deck acts as all of your available resources, and then the line of command and the fog of war and just all the things that go into battle that make it where you can't always do exactly what you want to do. There's a certain amount
because of the deck draw perspective. Yeah.
So I think it's a really interesting abstract of that part of battle.
Yeah, and it's funny you talk about you trying to get card combinations, and this it's not so much card combinations. It's almost like it's simulating supply. Is that your riflemen, you have to have depth in your riflemen. You want to draft more rifleman cards because your riflemen are on the front line and they're getting hit, so they're getting direct attack, and every time that direct attack hits, you lose a rifleman card. If you run out of rifleman cards, that's the end of the unit. He's gone. Because you can draw more rifleman units, it's the equivalent is essentially reinforcement, resupply, bolstering that position. So all those aspects of the game come into effect as well. It's got a map, which, as far as I'm concerned, I know everybody wants to find out what an official definition of war game is, and everybody's got a different opinion on this. To me, one of the biggies is there's a map, and maps typically have places that are important and places that are stronger, and they may coincide or they may not. And even on this first scenario, it's very clear looking at the map. There are places that are more valuable to hold, and there are places that are easier to hold. And that makes a difference. You want to move to where you are better protected, and you want to take the spots that are of value, because that's fundamentally what this first scenario is about, is taking land and holding it. There's victory places that you need to grab onto. All of that is here. The dice rolling, post-decision luck, it's there, just like in traditional war games. You're going to plan a move, and you're going to hope for the best. And you may roll like crazy and do fantastic, or you may get completely crushed. And that is part of wargaming in general, as far as I'm concerned. You need to put yourself in harm's way in order to deliver harm against your opponent, and you need to take the risk to do that. And that's in full display in this game in a very simple, straightforward way. Anybody who's played Memoir, or frankly any of the C&C games, that's the level of complexity here. Very straightforward, very simple, very low piece count on the board. And I don't know what the future scenarios do. The boards get bigger. But fundamentally, get your troops out, get them to where they're safe, get them to where they're strong, hold the ground that you need to hold the ground in order to win the game.
And then push where you have to push.
Yep, and then start pushing and shoving up against each other. And that's what a real conflict game is about.
And the thing that I appreciate about this design in this game is the volley starts almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
There could be a lot of like posturing and getting into place and digging in and making sure that you have all the advantages. You could technically play it that way, but the map is so small and the rule set is in such a way that it really encourages you
get out there and get
just get in each other's face.
Yeah.
So like as a head-to-head conflict game, I really appreciate that because it gets you into the thick of it quicker.
Yeah, and sometimes the hardest thing of war games is those early decisions where you have no guidance to what's going to happen.
And it's also like that.
Those can be interminable turns because you just don't know what to do.
Yeah, and a lot of times in those war games, it's also when do you determine to make that first aggression can make or break your game.
Yep.
If you get too aggressive early, like you're done.
Yep.
If you take too long and you sit on your laurels, you're done.
Yep.
You gotta. It's
here first turn. You might be shooting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's one of those
close.
things where it's in traditional wargaming, there's that tipping point, and here they just kind of remove all of that and abstract it out, and basically throw you at each other.
That part's already happened. You've already moved up. There's the enemy. Go.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's perfect, and it's very fitting for Normandy. Was very much a maneuver part of the war. Get in and start moving. The Allies had to push in. They had to establish that beachhead. This is one of the, I think this is about a week after Normandy has already happened, but they're pushing out there. I think it's Carentan is where this is supposedly happening based on what you read last time. And the whole point is, it was a mechanized war. Is move, keep moving, keep hitting, and keep running. And that's the kind of thing that this is showing. So it's a very dynamic game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to switch sides and play again, the first scenario, and hopefully I have better dice rolls this time around.
Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, John, we got through Undaunted.
Yep.
We did the first scenario twice.
No.
And the second.
Oh, yes.
And the second scenario one time.
The second scenario one time. And we can only come to one conclusion, Stephen.
The U.S. is better than the Germans?
At rolling dice, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Before I was really excited to play this one, so I sat down, looked at the rules, set up the first scenario, kind of mock played it. I even went on BGG because there were a couple of things that I had questions about, and I just wanted to get some high-level strategy because... like the bolster command, it makes sense to me. Why would you ever need to bolster?
Okay.
And in the first couple of scenarios, you really don't need to. But further on, there are units that you want to protect, so you put them back into your supply. And I didn't realize that that's what I was looking at. And then I ran across Matt Thrower's review of it.
Right.
And he had the exact same experience where the German just don't know how to roll dice. And I read another review and the same thing. For some reason, the Germans in Undaunted just don't know how to roll dice.
And what's curious, because there is no asymmetry between the two sides. A rifleman is a rifleman, doesn't matter which side of the battle they're on.
Yeah, the asymmetry comes from the scenario that you're playing.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would think that, if you're fine with your rifleman and I'm fine with my rifleman, in the big picture, things are all going to kind of level out. And certainly in the first two games, they did not. The second game, I think you got a few more hits in.
Well, the second game, I was also rolling a lot more dice.
A lot more dice, yeah.
Because, well, you saw at the end of the game, my casualties versus your casualties were, like, you killed all of my riflemen.
Yeah. That's how
which
I won
was
the game.
5.
Yeah.
And you killed 2 of my scouts and 1 of my gunners. So I think I had 10 casualties. No, I had 7 casualties total, probably.
Okay.
To the 3 that I inflicted upon you.
Yeah, and the last 2 were very late.
Yeah, and so I was using the machine gunners to suppress. And the tactical error, the strategic error that I made that I realized was that I was using suppressive fire too much. Like, it was good when it was at range.
Yeah.
But as soon as you started building up and bolstering, I needed to start taking shots.
Yeah, the minute I started making my approach.
Yeah, because once you had bolstered basically your entire squad into your deck, like, there was nothing that I was going to be able to do with my one squad. Because you had 2 squads worth of units, and I had 1 squad.
Yeah.
So you basically had me 2-1 the entire match.
Yeah, you just had a lot less cards in your deck, which in some ways is good because your big special cards come out. But there's a part of this game where it's your grunts that are carrying the battle. I mean, you need your rifleman cards to come up because that's how you inflict damage. Right? Your platoon sergeant, he's great. He gets a couple extra cards in your hand, but he's not taking the other guy out of the war.
Yeah. No, at the beginning, I had used my scouts to get rid of my fog of war, and then I was basically using my platoon sergeant to draw the extra cards, and then my squad leader to bolster.
Yeah, so you
and
kept growing.
There were turns where I was playing six cards sometimes.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I was doing great. Like, I thought I was keeping you at bay. I was able to throw suppressive fire across the map, and then I was able to get my scout out to at least scout.
Right, to put yourself into those areas.
Yes, to make it more so that you couldn't just walk in and take it.
Yeah.
And that was my plan and I should have started that step earlier too, which I did not. I should have used my riflemen to take control of those territories
so that I'd have to fight it back.
I'd at least have some time to...
Right, so the second scenario is essentially the Americans have to run across an open field with machine gun fire and capture one of 3 or 4, I don't know, some number of spots that are very close to the German position.
Yeah.
So when this is what I was talking about. How I feel a real war game should be is you have to step into the line of fire. And as the American here, it's like, look, I am going to need to expose myself, and there's a spot where you can step where there's a little bit of cover, and then you got to get to where you need to be. You can't be knuckling around in the middle. All right, when you go. So the first thing I did was I got to bolster up because I'm going to take damage when I do this. So I want extra cards because that's what damage does. It takes cards out of your deck forever. So I want to get those all in. So I managed to get those all up and in because I was using all my bolsters for bolster. All right, I'm staying back here where I'm relatively safe, and you're taking pot shots at me, and you're like suppressing guys. You're pinning people down, and then you play a card, and they come back up, and you don't lose a card when you do that. When you hit a guy, that card's gone from the game, and you never get that card back. But once I was topped up, I'm like, okay, I got to make my run, and whichever set of cards I get first, that's where I'm running. And my A guys came up, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to the right, and I'm just there's a little spot in the middle where I can step on real quick, and then I got to go. And then the B came up, and I'm like, okay, B can draw fire from A, and so your machine gun cannot fire double shots at one of my guys without leaving the other side unmolested. And it was just, at that point, it's a mad dash, and you get in there and you smash heads, and you need to get rid of the other guy before he gets rid of you. That's what it boiled down to. I
was basically trying to time my machine gun fire with, like, if one turn you used your A guys, and I had initiative, I knew I needed to shoot at your B guys.
Right, because they were coming out.
the A's had already been used and the B's were the ones that were coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to manage that a couple of times, but you just had so many units in your deck. It didn't matter at that point because you were going to get units on either from either squad. Yeah.
So I made the connection on the one side. The other side hung up, and I just kept not getting, because I needed a pair of cards. The scouts need to scout, and then the infantry needs to go in behind them.
Mm.
And that just wasn't happening. I wasn't getting scouts and infantry on the same side at the same time. But finally, I managed to pull that together, and then at that point, it came down to us just shooting each other at close range to see who would get which.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing that comes out of this is that, I mean, there's a narrative of this battle. I mean, we're sitting here talking about and how things went. So, I mean, the game kind of puts you in that level of immersion, which is pretty impressive considering, it's maybe a dozen chits on the board.
Yeah.
And
it's a very
deck of cards.
It's a very simple, abstracted war game.
Yeah.
Yet it still allows for that narrative to emerge from the gameplay.
Yeah. The resource management, the get reinforcements up, that kind of thing, it's all in there. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, and you got the couple of different types of narrative. You got the narrative that comes from the story that has been put in place, like if you set a game in like Rokugan or like at the Disney universe or something. And then you got the narrative that comes from reading the text on the cards. But then you have the emergent gameplay narrative,
mm-hmm.
which is just, not every game does it.
Yeah.
And some games that do it don't do it well. And I think that Undaunted does it really, really well.
Yeah, and there's been 50 or 100 games trying to do this at this level of complexity, and almost all of them have failed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a handful of titles, and I can see why this already has a couple of expansions, or not expansions, but
so I think this has an expansion. So I think there's like an Undaunted reinforcements.
Okay.
Which I think is an expansion for Normandy.
And this is the first one.
And this is the first box.
Okay.
And then there's, 2 sequels, and then the third sequel coming out. So there's North Africa, then, there's 4, because then there's one that's a campaign. Stalingrad.
Ugh.
So that one is...
That'll be a slog.
So that one's also a campaign game on top of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this has a series of scenarios that you can play through, but hearing other podcasters and reviewers talking about Stalingrad, I think it has particular characters because each of the riflemen and scouts has a name.
Yeah.
And I think you carry some of them over game to game based on who survives and who does. That's my assumption of how the campaign will work.
I could see that.
Yeah, it's I've heard a lot of good things about that one as well. But
okay.
I chose to go with Normandy because it just makes sense to start from the beginning.
Yeah,
so
why not?
That's what I chose to do.
You talk to war game designers, they'll tell you, it's always the same battles. Okay, it's the Battle of Britain.
Mm-hmm.
It's Nijmegen. It's A Bridge Too Far, that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
North Africa has games, and then Eastern Front, which is Stalingrad. And it's like, and Normandy is storming the beaches at Normandy. So it's like they're hitting the highlights that you've always hit for World War II. So maybe that's why they're going out into space, because short of the Battle of the Bulge, they've kind of run out the main titles that you do for World War II.
Yeah, I was about to say, is there like an armor division version of Undaunted that
there
has to be, right?
That would be on the Eastern Front if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that would be like the Battle of Kursk or something like that, where there's a lot of tanks, which, it comes right down to it. Even tank battles are all about infantry, but nobody wants to look at it that way. It's more fun to pretend you're driving a tank than it is to be running across an open field. But we had a great time, and they're quick little simple things. I mean, you could play this at lunch, for goodness sake. I mean, it's
I don't
maybe
know
half an hour.
Yeah, so maybe half an hour, but the setup is probably going to be the problematic there. It's funny because the second time we played the first scenario, that one was over in probably like 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was quick
because I went off of, I learned from the first game and basically
up in the middle.
I made the decisions that I should have made and just went straight for the 2-point spot in the middle and basically got there before you did and was able to claim it.
Yeah.
Like, I was able to clear you off and claim it.
Yeah.
And it took all of like 4 rounds to do that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And so I think if we played the second scenario again, I might have a better chance. But that's just...
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't have the historical gaming like brain, although I do enjoy playing them, I guess. You have more experience with them, so you can look at a wargaming system and kind of figure out what your best routes are, and then you have historical context too.
Yeah, the way you get that is by playing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I tend to have more of a geometric brain than like card builders and stuff I usually do horrible with.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a map, it's just something that seems to fit my brain
and
thinking
dice.
better. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I just roll better. I mean,
we'll see how we roll when I'm the U.S. and you're the Germans.
That's what I was going to say, and it's very traditional, especially in a game that's short like this. Is you play around and then you switch seats and you play the other way, because oftentimes war games aren't.
They're unbalanced.
Well, they aren't even.
Yeah.
Balance is kind of a different word, but yeah, but. The Germans may be favored in a particular battle, and especially if they won, and vice versa. So you play each side.
And then you count casualties rather than...
Yeah, or if one guy... First of all, if one guy wins both ways, he won for the night.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you kind of, even just sort of a seat of your pants kind of, he kind of showed me how that was supposed to work. So you got the win on that one. So.
Yeah. Well, I had fun.
Yeah, I had fun too, and this was one we could come back to, and we could come back to if we pick up one of the other titles, we could come back to that too. But I'd be real curious to see where they go with this, because this is a system that, like I said, this could be like a Command and Colors system where they could be in
they could iterate
5
on
or
this
6 eras all over the place.
Yeah, they could iterate on this many times.
Yeah, I'd love to see this with heavy infantry in the middle. I mean, I'm more of an Ancients guy. I would love to see hoplites just slamming heads on this. This would be cool.
Dave Thompson, Trevor Benjamin, you heard him.
That's right. You pre-order number 1.
Yep. So we like the game. You want to give it a number? I mean, you won 2 of the 3 battles. So
Sterling 7. This is something I'm definitely wanting to get back to real soon. So
yeah. So I am normally, when we have game nights, we have between 4 and 7 people sometimes.
Yep.
And I could totally see this being a game where the 2 of us break off.
Yeah.
And just play a 2-player game, or we kind of come up with our own 2-player game night, because I really enjoy this, and this makes me want to find opportunities to play 2-player games. And with that, because generally I'm a multiplayer game type of guy, I don't particularly care for head-to-head games. There are a few exceptions, like Summoner Wars and even Table Battles kind of like scratch that itch for me. But this one, Undaunted, definitely tops the list of 2-player games and makes me want to seek out 2-player games. So for that, I'm going to give it a really high 7.
Yeah, I think this, maybe we need a second copy of this, so when we got 4, 5, even 6 people, we can have a couple of these versions out on the table and people can start playing different stuff.
Yeah, so, all right, Unmatched also is, typically a 2-player head-to-head game, but we play it 4 players.
So we have Unmatched and Undaunted.
Very ungaming, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna may have a devil of a time keeping those straight.
But we typically play that one 4 players, 2-on-2 or free for all. I would like to play that one head to head more too, but
and that one's quick too.
Yeah.
So I tell you, we could have a situation where we have like 6 people on a game night. We've got a game of Undaunted set up, and we've got a game of Unmatched set up. Because if they're playing in half an hour, you can swing into one seat and into the other, and you can be playing both games simultaneously.
Yeah, or, if we have a couple of these Undaunted sets, we could have a couple of different theaters set up.
Yeah, or the other option is you play synchronized, where you're playing the same scenario at the same time, and you can kind of eyeball the other player that's playing your side and saying, okay, how are you doing this? And, maybe compare notes to figure out how you're going to defeat the guy across the table from you.
I'm interested to see what the 2200 Callisto... brings to the table, because it is supposed to support 4 players out of the box.
Okay. And is it like, it's on a moon, so it's infantry again.
It's space. It's mechs, and it's a mining company, and then it's the miners versus the mining company.
Oh, okay.
Is what I understand it to be. So they're asymmetric sides, so it's not the same sides.
And that's not out yet.
No, it's due out anytime now, I think.
Okay.
I think it's hitting shelves right now, actually.
Okay, good.
So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll try our best to play this some more. And so that's Undaunted. Osprey Games, David Thompson, Trevor Benjamin. The one thing that I'll say, they did commit the cardinal sin of board gaming. They have in their rule book this fantastic reference sheet.
Perfect
reference sheet.
That is perfect, Stephen.
It is inside the cover. And you know what's on the back cover?
What is on the back cover?
Nothing.
Oh,
not a thing. You remember when we reviewed Mosaic?
Perfectly good real estate, yeah.
You remember when we reviewed Mosaic and I said the best thing about Mosaic was it came with 2 rule books.
Yeah.
And both rule books had that reference
summary
sheet
on the back. Yeah.
Oh, Undaunted. Come on, man. I hope that the later games, you realize the error.
Later printings, because I guarantee you they're going to be printing more of this copy,
this should be a later printing because, this has been out since 2019.
Yeah, but they have not heard your sage advice.
Oh, it's not just my sage advice. Yeah, this is a flag that many, many people wave.
So you're saying this brings it back to a 6 for you?
No, I'm going to say it's a 7 despite that.
Okay.
It's just such a fun game.
Yeah.
legitimately had a good time with this one.
Yeah. And there's a certain joy to smashing heads that you don't get from other sorts of gaming. I mean, it's straight at the other guy.
Yeah, and like we said before, like in the preamble, it gets you in the action almost immediately.
Yeah, heads down, brain in.
You're going straight for the jugular from go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that makes, I think that's what makes a game like this work.
Yeah, it's a great play.
All right, Undaunted, go give it a shot.